two, three, four. One, 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 two, three, four.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. On this, our fifth GMGVGBC or Good Morning Guys Video Game Book Club spoilercast of 2021. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine morning, afternoon, evening, or night as we continue talking about the Bioshock series. This time focusing on the sequels of one is not a sequel. Focusing on the sequels of 2 and Infinite. I'm one of your hosts tonight, the Brazilian Raptureneer and transition splicer Lucas Hamswisher. And I am joined again by not one, but 2 special return guests. First, our now 4-peat guest on the show, the Canadian Big Daddy himself, and the nicest guy I know, Kris "The Rock" Kerwin.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, buddy. Glad to have you here. And then next to him, our now mutual friend, my now mutual friend, just a mutual friend now, thanks to Kris, who's on a quest for nostalgia by day and definitely, most certainly, rescuing little sisters by night. And, also a West Virginian, a Southern West Virginia, as I just found out. And I would say now is probably the second nicest person I know, Dylan Tenenbaum Oak.
Hello.
Glad to have you, buddy, for us again. Glad you came back. I hope you guys are ready to talk about all things Bioshock 2 and Infinite. Just in case some people stumbled upon our podcast or they stumbled upon this Twitch stream, whatever, why don't you guys take a few moments and just tell people just real quick who you are. Actually, we're just going to sum it all up in one question that you can answer that will help everyone to get to know you. Are you ready?
Okay.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Is that a kindergarten cop reference?
That is a kindergarten cop reference.
I love that. I absolutely love that. It's like one of my favorite movies by Arnold.
Oh, man, it's a classic. So no, really, who's your daddy and what does he do?
That's a harder one for me. So I wouldn't have an answer that my mom is really cool.
All right, that works too. Who's your mommy and what does she do?
Yeah, my mom is a wonderful lady named Laura, and she works at a dentist's office as
Nice.
office manager for 2 different locations. And yeah, she's the best. She's the best all around, for sure.
Nice. All right, Kris, your turn.
Well, my dad's a retired ER doctor, and
Wow.
he's awesome. And I like to think that if my life is a quarter of what he's achieved, I'll have made it.
Nice.
Nice. Well, my dad, his name's Chuck, and he is a retired pharmacist. So, yep. And then back in the day, I used to be his drug runner, and I would deliver medicine to, the sick and the elderly throughout.
Yeah, Lucas actually
Grafton, West Virginia.
rode with Balto through the mountains and delivered medicine.
That's correct. During the winter, I definitely had a sled dog team in West Virginia. It was
to
fantastic.
Stop smallpox and polio.
Yep, that's what we did. That's what we had to do. Is that an age joke? Are you saying I'm really old?
That was just
back in the day.
Drug running in pharmacy.
Back in the day. But yeah, no, seriously, guys. We are just here to talk about Bioshock. But for those that don't know, Dylan Quest4Nostalgia is a fellow Twitch streamer and content creator on YouTube. Kris, as you may or may not know, is just a great joiner and a friend. He is a Twitch streamer as well, but he keeps it simple and just likes to hang out, likes to chat about video games, chat about life. And we're just here to do that tonight. So let's jump right in. Warning to all those who have not played Bioshock 2 and Infinite. We're spoiling this from the get-go. There's no beating around the bush. There's going to be no spoiler-free review or anything like that. We're just going to jump right in. So if you have not played these games, what are you doing? Pause this. Go play Bioshock 2. Go play Bioshock Infinite. It's worth your time. They're great games, great stories, and then you can resume this podcast. But if you're not against, go ahead.
We may spoil 1 and the DLCs too. So anything Bioshock, that's true. Just hit pause and come back later.
Exactly. Well, guys, let's go ahead and I guess we should plug part 1 of this. If you haven't listened to the Bioshock 1
that's true too.
spoilercast, also check that out. It'll kind of be disjointed if you don't. But if you want to, fly by the seat of your pants, if you want to be like Ronnie, one of our co-hosts of the GMG podcast, who watched Avengers Infinity War first, and then watched all the rest of the Marvel movies, you can be an agent of chaos, I guess. But do it at your own risk. That's
a cold shower.
Yeah,
right there. If you haven't seen anything else, and you start with that, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so let's start with Bioshock 2, guys. It was released by 2K Marin, or just 2K. It was not directed by the same director of Bioshock 1, Ken Levine. It was directed by Jordan Thomas. I have no idea who that person is, but they're the one that directed it. It has an 88 Metacritic, which isn't bad. That's a really good score. But it did not sell as well as the original, around 3 million copies to Bioshock 1's 4 to 5 million, at least within the first few months of release. I think since then it's probably sold a little more, but not a whole bunch more. It's set after Bioshock 1, around 1958. You play as a Big Daddy from the beginning. We talked about in Bioshock 1 how you actually take the suit of a Big Daddy and kind of turn yourself into one. This one, you're a Big Daddy from the beginning. Subject Delta. You wake up 10 years after you've been killed, and you pretty much go on this very linear adventure, as opposed to the Metroidvania that we talked about in the first one. And you're kind of like guided by Tenenbaum from the first one, and then a new character, August Sinclair. What did you guys think of the first? Let's just say the opening and opening cinematic, the opening hour of the game. What did you guys think of that, Dylan? Go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, it starts off really strong. So you had mentioned that it is 2K Merlin or whatever, and that actually is a big deal, right? So that's a different branch of 2K that took up the mantle. There was a completely new team. And so that was so amazing to get this one because they did it seamlessly. I mean, they really stayed so true to the aesthetic, the feel, everything. I don't know how much of like the assets that they already had from, 1 were able to carry over into 2, like what they were able to do, say, even designing the game wise. Like, did they already have the model for this or that? Or did this team have to kind of look at the game and recreate it from the ground up? I don't really know how that went. But if either way, they just did it so seamlessly. I mentioned, I did a YouTube video called Best First Person Shooter on my Quest4Nostalgia channel. And that's a retrospective review of Bioshock as well, without it being spoilers. But as I'm walking in that video, I say like, oh gosh, this game is so gorgeous. I just love to stop and look. Well, there's this poster in that scene. When I came into Bioshock 2, you walk through this like storage closet very early on, and that poster that was in the middle of that video is like laying in the corner over there. And it's like, so they clearly used like very, specific items from Bioshock 1 and brought it into there. And so like things like that were just so impressive to me. It just kept the feel of the city and just kept it going. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. So going into it, I kind of got this blend of like, I forgot whether or not I remembered anything of 2 from playing when I was younger to playing again, this year. I couldn't remember if I was thinking of the ending of Bioshock 1 where you're a Big Daddy, or the gameplay that I had of being 2 as a Big Daddy. I just kind of, it muddled everything for me. I just couldn't really remember. Together. But it was so long ago for doing 2 that it was almost a complete blank canvas again, either way. And I had a really good time with it. I really enjoyed it. And if you told me it was the same team, I would have believed you. I would have never known that it was a new group of people that took up the mantle.
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely had the same feel. And you mentioned, using similar assets or having things that I think it was more a matter of they wanted to keep it familiar, like connect you to the first game by not changing, the look. I mean, Rapture actually looked more deteriorated in the second one, but at the same time, I thought it looked more dynamic, more vibrant, more beautiful. I could tell from playing 1 to playing 2, the improvement of graphics, the improvement of sound was, I thought it was great.
Agreed.
Like, it was way better. Listening on my headphones to where the water would hit the helmet of your Big Daddy helmet, like it felt like water was hitting my head, and like It was
Yeah.
when you'd go under like a little waterfall or something. It was really impressive. I thought it was really good. The atmosphere.
And they added this layer of verticality to 2 that now that I'm thinking about it. So when you were saying that, talking about, you know, the upgrade from 1 to 2 in the aesthetic of the buildings and stuff like that, that actually I think comes from the fact that there was now 2 layers to so many things. You could walk up a stair set and now you're on the balcony, and you could walk all the way around the balcony and look down into these areas. Whereas in 1, now that I'm thinking back to them, like, you don't really go up on a above level. You're almost always on 1 floor level, you know, and
or it's
that's really it.
If it has stairs, it's enclosed.
Yeah,
and
you're moving levels kind of when you take the stairs.
So I was thinking, I was like, yeah, I mean that really did.
Yeah, I remember in those apartments, you would see enemies and you'd go up there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
and that's about when I found that regular enemies were pretty spongy. What we talked about at the last episode, it was I have these apartments where, you know, they were normal splicers, and they would empty my clip, and it was interesting to hear how you didn't feel that at all. So we played differently, probably. I didn't upgrade the right stuff, I guess. But from the opening, I really I really dug the drill, pun intended. But I think my son was not too far, and I was like, oof. You know, like you're drilling someone in the stomach from the get-go, and it is pretty gruesome. But it was an interesting weapon, like running out of gas instead of bullets, and it was a good twist, and definitely a really powerful close-up melee weapon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say in the opening, the biggest thing I felt more empowered from the beginning. Like, you know, you talk about that drill, talking about, you know, being a big daddy from the beginning. Like, they're like the worst enemies, the toughest enemies. I mean, even tougher than, you know, the final boss of Bioshock 1. The big daddies are the ones that scare you the most.
Yeah.
And so to be one in the second one, and to kind of start that journey in which it's very, like, you're very much a big daddy the entire time. And I mean, that comes with positives and negatives, but at the beginning, I felt very empowered. I felt like I immediately recognized that your guns and I'm already forgetting because I'm looking ahead to Bioshock Infinite, your powers, it's not vigors, it's, what is the name of your hand, your magic
tonics and stuff, like plasmids,
plasmids, your plasmids, and your, you know, your ice powers, your fire powers. Like they changed the gameplay or the mechanics to where you could use them at the same time, and it wasn't like switching hands on the screen. It was, they were both there, and you could fire the electric and immediately shoot your gun, and that complementariness of the I guess the magic and the guns was really cool in the second one. I immediately recognized that. I enjoyed the gunplay way more in the second one than I did in the first one. And so, you know, we get into I guess the meat and potatoes of the game, and you're pretty much on a journey to reunite with your original little sister, because in that world, as a big daddy, you're connected in such a way that you will die if you're not like in proximity to your little sister. So as Project Delta, your goal is pretty much to go from point A and get to point B, wherever your little sister is. You know, it's 10 years later, so she's more like a big sister, which we'll talk about big sisters in a second. But you take the journey then to go and to find your little sister, and along the way you meet different lieutenants, different characters that help you get to the next part, and then also give you decisions to make, because you can either let them live or kill them. Like, you have Grace Holloway, who's the first one you meet, who's Lamb's lieutenant, and Lamb being the mother of the little sister that, you know, from in the game, she pretty much kills you and takes her daughter back. But then you meet a reporter, Stanley Poole, a scientist, Gilbert, and Father Simon Wales, who's a really crazy priest kind of guy that was crazy. But what did you guys think of, you know, going to each new area, engaging in the pretty much of these boss battles? Like, it was pretty like it was almost like levels of Mario. Like you just pretty much were taking it's a pretty linear path. It was not as Metroidvania as the first
Yeah.
one.
I don't know if you
What'd you
mind if
guys
I
think of
start
that?
off again.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Because it's funny. You say that it's very linear and going through that, and it's like I didn't even realize that I wasn't doing Metroidvania stuff in this one. Now that you're saying it, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, he's actually really right about this. But I didn't get that feeling just because I had plasmids and things like that again. So it did feel like
Right.
maybe your collectibles and things like that. There was still puzzles of melting things or
Yeah, there was.
electrifying things, so that I feel like that still gave me the feel that I was
Yeah.
investigating in an area, even if it wasn't necessarily like the only way to get through said path is by doing that. I did feel like I was still doing the Metroidvania stuff, but
Yeah.
thinking about it, it's like, yeah, you get to an area, you have to wait for the train, you get to the area, get to the next train and things like that.
I don't think it's a knock. Like for me, I appreciate both versions of that. I mean, it's still telling a pretty linear story. And I think BioShock original, even though it was a Metroidvania, quote unquote, it's still told a linear story. Like you still had to progress things. There's not like there were side missions. There weren't many side missions in the first one. So but yeah, the train very much gave it that linear feel. Like, okay, I got to do what I got to do in this world, this area, get the train to where I can go then to the next area. And so it was much more on the nose this time, but not enough.
And so for me, I have a love for collectathons. That was something that
Right.
I really loved as a kid. Spyro, things like that, where you do get this hub world type thing, and it tells you how many things you have to collect, how many dragons that you need to save, how many gems are there in the whole level to clear out, right? And so Bioshock also does that for me, where if you pause, you see how many little sisters have been saved, and then each of the little sisters had its own, like, all right, let's harvest 3 people, and then you can let your little sister go, and that counts as being saved. So that aspect of it, I really enjoyed that, going through and having a little sister around, and she's like sucking the Eve out of this dead body over here, and you're now doing this wave-based combat of protecting her. Again, we all talked about playing differently. I played super melee heavy on this one. Every like plasmid option, or every the little perks that you can add onto your skills kind of thing, I led so much of a melee path, boosting all melee things, using less gas abilities and things like that. And so I mean, I was just this devastating thing that would be hiding behind a wall, letting the little sister be over here doing the Eve, and then just punching things as it came through,
as they walked around the corner,
the area. And so I had a really good time playing this kind of melee version of Bioshock, as opposed to the first time I played really shooty. This time I played it way different, really utilized that big drill aspect of it. And then cool things like the trap rivet type gun, where you could set those up before while you're
really
doing
cool.
this. So I definitely enjoyed how they did these layouts, these kind of things where you're doing this kind of protector, not necessarily, what is that called, where
tower
you have
defense.
these kind of babysitting. Yeah, it was kind of like tower defense.
Yeah,
for sure.
But it's like escort
exactly. It didn't feel as escorty, like, because she wasn't moving around. It was defense, but it still technically was kind of an escort mission. So I really enjoyed the way that they did that level design. And then you talked about how there's these different lieutenants that you deal with. I love that became the decision on whether or not you harvest or whatever as well. It kind of gave you a new decision making thing. And so I chose to save to not hurt this older black woman who was in charge of the first area. I decided to let her go, and she kind of like calls off her minions, as opposed to saying, she's like, I can't protect you from everywhere, but I'll let them know, like, all right, he's safe, even though she kind of antagonizes you to kill her. She's like, come on, get it done with, do whatever, end this, and it's like, actually, I'm really not here for that. I'm just trying to get to my little sister, or my, whatever, my daughter type thing.
Get to Sophia Lamb.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because those collectathons, to me, and it's my own fault. Like, I know it's not as if I played it when it came out and I paid full price and I wanted to take my time with it. We do this book club we have a schedule to maintain, and we just decided to play the trilogy in the time that was allowed for just Bioshock 1. So I was rushing it a little bit, and the fact that I had to redo the defending the little sister sometimes 3 times, sometimes 4 times in a section, and I saw that on the map, and I was like, again, like that's padding to me. Okay. And so but if it's a completely different perspective, like it looked like you were playing hide and seek and having fun, so the more the merrier. You're enjoying it, and I was just trying to rush to get to the end of the game as soon as possible, so I didn't enjoy the copy paste repetition of those moments, especially when you see on the map that you have so many to do in different areas and everything. I was like, oh, seriously? But it mixed that with the sponginess. It felt a bit like a drag for me personally, but it's definitely not a knock against the game. It's more the headspace I was when I did my playthrough.
So I take it you enjoyed the change in hacking though in this, to where it sped up that, because like the hacking was really cool in Bioshock 1 with the pipes, but man, after you did it 5 times, you're like, trying to go as fast as you're like, moving all your pipes as fast as you can. And in this one, you had the meter, much faster.
It's just skill based.
And so I'm guessing that was so much better for you if you're trying to go fast. You're like, oh my gosh, thank God I don't have to do pipe after pipe after pipe. I could just go dink, radar gun across there. You shoot the camera and you're like, good to go.
Exactly.
But even the game, the little mini game of matching it in the green area, like I even like the extra little blue area, and it would give you bonuses. Yeah. I was like, I got to get that blue at least once, if not twice or 3 times, depending on how many options they gave. Yeah, I definitely like the hacking more. I really do feel like, once I got that in Bioshock 2 with the wavy line and then clicking it on the right color, looking back then at 1, I was like, 1 is so clunky with the pipe spinning and it just interrupts.
It's more of a puzzle.
It is more of a puzzle, but it just feels, I don't know, it just felt clunky looking at it, with the hindsight. And then I'm gonna have to lean towards Kris as well with the escort missions with the little sisters. I actually went evil on this game because I did not have the patience, even not even taking into consideration the time frame. Like, I got to get this game done so we can talk about it. Like, I enjoyed the game and I wanted to take my time with the story, but I felt like every little sister escort should have been just one body, then collect it, put her in the tube, you're done. If it had been that, I would have done it, but it was like 2, sometimes 3 times you had to like walk her over. And I'll grant it, the little sisters are cute and they are morbid. Like, some of the things they said, like when you'd cook some people with the flame hands, they'd be like, ooh, marshmallows, Mr. What did she call
or whatever,
Mr. Bubbles, marshmallows. Or like when you shocked them with the electricity, she'd be like, ooh, they're dancing, Mr. Bubbles. Like the little comments they would make were so funny, but at the same time, I didn't enjoy the escort part of it. Like, find the body, get the stuff out so we can move on. I want the story. I don't want these copy and paste escort missions, but
and the trail could be super confusing. So you get this kind of like scent. If you haven't played it or whatever, and you're still watching, there was this kind of like scent trail of like where the dead body was to go there. And sometimes it would go different ways. Like, you get to one area and then it's taking you to a different, because there's multiple dead bodies around the world to be able to use. You'd have to just do one or the other. And so, it's like, I can definitely understand that for sure.
Yeah. But along with that, every time you would, once you would take care of so many little sisters, whether you would harvest them or you would, free them and like do the little thing where you touch them on the forehead and they're healed, or I did not enjoy the harvesting animation, like where you pretty much like you rip a fish out of them, suck the life out of them, little salamander comes. I don't know, it's weird.
I never did it, so I don't even know. I didn't.
You don't
that.
You don't want
Me
to.
neither.
It's not very nice, but it was way
I can't
faster.
believe you went evil,
Right?
Lucas.
It just
We
I
talked
didn't-
about this last episode.
I know, and it just got so old. It was kind of like moving boxes in Uncharted for me, I guess. So, yeah, but once you took care of so many little sisters, whether you did it the nice way or the bad way, like me, you would eventually encounter big sisters. Now, let me tell you, this was a cool addition, I thought, to the Bioshock universe, and I thought they were even scarier than Big Daddies. The velociraptor
They were cool.
they would make, and the
Yeah.
quickness,
Yeah.
and all the stuff they were flipping around doing acrobatics and stuff.
Mhm.
So cool. I really like. They were terrifying, I thought.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
on easy, I was like scared, hiding in a corner, just like, come on, I'm ready for you.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. It's my
I
favorite
just
part
felt like
of
the bosses were too easy to kill though. So like I didn't have this kind of bullet sponge feel to them. I feel like I melted them, and so it felt like, I don't know. I almost wish it was an overcompassing character. Like, I don't know if you guys played the Resident Evils,
1 and 2
any of the
them,
new
yeah.
ones or anything like that.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2. Okay, so 2 and 3 are the ones that mainly have, say, Nemesis or Mr. X or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Right.
These characters that are constantly patrolling the area that give you this sense of dread. The first time you see the big sister, you're like, oh my gosh, right? I wish that it had been one singular big sister that was constantly this thing
Yeah.
that, you know,
coming
I could
back.
see that.
maybe you could injure it and then it would back off and go heal or something, right? Like not, and there would be multiple fights like that, as
Mhm.
opposed to you kind of wrecking it. You know, for me, it was a simple fight and I would melt this thing. And I'm like, man, you know, like it was always the sense of dread in the beginning, but then after the first few fights, I really didn't have that feeling towards it. I think there was a time where you fight 2 of them near the end as well.
Yeah.
And like, I just, they kind of lost it for me with that. I
Mhm.
really would have preferred one singular character that was just this kind
Yeah.
of scary thing. Like if you popped around a door and you saw it like tink, 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 you know, that you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
fight this thing.
I could see that for sure. And then by the time you get to the end and your little sister becomes a big sister, you know, and mine became a very twisted big sister. And your guys's was probably a little more even keeled. You got the good ending, that kind of stuff. And I think that's a really cool part of the game, which you kind of got at the end of Bioshock 1, but this one was more personal in the fact that all the decisions you made then decided what kind of big sister you were going to have.
That's interesting.
And yeah, mine was hungry for
That's
blood.
funny because
and
I also didn't use my big sister. So like
I
you had
totally
this
used her.
ability to be like,
did.
call me in.
Mhm.
And like I'm like punching everything, like, I don't need you, you're good, stay safe, you know, whatever. And just like crushing everything. And I'm like, I don't think I used her, but maybe the very end when like water is filling up in that like area. I think I barely used her. I should have used her more.
Yeah, she was fun.
But
she
they
was
were
very powerful.
I don't think I was playing on easy, so also it wasn't a huge deal. It wasn't scary, but just the way they talk also, like their I don't know, it's like that Darth Vader, like she's talking through a mask and saying crazy stuff and jumping around. Like they had a really good feel to them. And I feel like if I played on normal or hard, I would have been scared and hiding for sure.
100%.
I'm a wuss when it comes to that stuff. So even on easy, I'm like, I mean, I played Last of Us 2 using all the accessibility options. Like I was pretty much invisible and I was still scared, walking around, like, you know, just running into all the creepy stuff. The atmosphere for me
we can't
makes everything worse. No, we can't. So
I'm going to say shivs were really powerful in 2 compared to 1. So I thought that was with the clickers.
That's true. That's true.
That's all I'll say.
But yeah, so by the time you get through the whole journey of Bioshock 2, there's no real huge twist other than your actions kind of guided your little sister to what kind of big sister she would be. What did you guys think of the whole journey, of the end? You guys got the good end, so
the relationship with her
Kris?
was really nice, I find. It's a nice change of pace. Like I appreciated that, but overall a bit more, maybe a bit more forgetful in terms of story compared to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty straightforward.
So for me, I think you get a good job of them going a little bit more into, say, the training of these little sisters, right? Of what it becomes to get this harvesting of like you kind of see how they brainwash these kids into, like you're saying, they're like, oh, he's dancing, and like you're actually kind of learning about how they brainwash these kids into being these harvesting things, because you go into their classrooms and things like that in this one. There's some different adventure modes, and then you also learn that you have this almost manipulated character again. So your sister, your little sister is actually manipulating you. You know, you find out that she has the power to control you, really, and getting you to come to her. So it was like, oh, cool. It was different than the original manipulation, and but it was cool that they still tied that in there in a new way. So I enjoyed that when she's like in the chamber, and you first see her. I think that's when there was a 2 sister fight in that room when you first come up and you're trying to figure out how to get her out of that room. And I think the lady tries to kill her to try to kill you. Doesn't she like stab? She stabs
does.
your little sister to try to get you to die, your connection to break,
Yeah.
And so that's when you realize that connection is so strong that like she does have this power over you to kind of get you to come do whatever. But then you also get that power of being a little sister for a little bit. So that scene where like you're now in this like gray area and you become the little sister climbing through the tubes and stuff like that. I thought that was a fun
that was
change.
a fun little thing. But you saw their perspective on how nice everything looks to them. And then like you have these flashes of reality where it's like, oh, it's not nice.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. Like different, I think like even rats and stuff like that were just
they're like
different.
they're totally different. Yeah.
One last thing to touch on, like last podcast on Bioshock 1, we talked about how you guys, or at least you, Dylan, I think you deactivated the helmet, like seeing
so
the
in
overlay.
2, I 100% took the filter off of the scuba suit.
So I went back because I never noticed that ever, and I went back to see my VOD, and it was there. And and even took me a while to see it. It's really, really thin all around. It's not like really hiding, like I guess when you control one in Bioshock 1.
Yeah.
So it really didn't bother me because I never noticed it ever.
I thought it was much more
subtle.
It was subtle, in the second one. The first one, it was like it closed like felt like a third of the screen was consumed by this helmet. It's like, oh man, I'm glad this is temporary. But in the second one, I didn't think the helmet wasn't that bad. But you get to the end, and for me, mine was my little sister Sophia. She pretty much decided, you do what it takes to survive, and that's what I taught her to do. I didn't get the worst ending because I did save some of the little sisters, and so I got kind of a neutral one where I taught her to do whatever it takes to survive, but then at the end, I didn't let her revive me. I sacrificed myself. And so she kind of ended with, I do what it takes to survive, but I can still, have hope. And like, it's all rainy and dark at the end when you're sitting on the boat after you float to the surface, and then like sunlight pierces through the clouds, and then you die, or then your Delta dies. And so that's how kind of my ending was, kind of like a neutral positive ending with hope, kind of deal. So but you guys got like the real good ending because you saved all the sisters and all that.
I saved all the sisters. I'm not gonna lie, I can't really remember. All I remember is the lady that tried to kill our little sister or whatever still escaped with us or something like that. We had like let her come with us, I guess.
She died in mine.
Yeah, I think she came with us, didn't she? I mean,
she does. She survives in the good ending.
Yeah, Sophia, I think so. I remember
Sophia
that.
Lets her live.
Yeah, I think that's what mine showed, was like that she ended up coming with us, and I was like, okay. I still end up killing the crazy people. So like, I think Sophia Lamb was the only one that I saved out of the other people, but the other people that were corrupt, like that because you had multiple people through different train stations, right? Like the
Yeah.
one that was locked behind the door in the train station.
Yeah.
You find out that he was really messed up, right? Like I can't remember what he was doing,
The
but
scientist.
maybe, but he was doing
Yeah.
something, and I remember
did the
The
killing
same
guy
him.
behind the glass, that's apparently that's some guy. He's called Surface like Surface Jimmy or something like that, and he actually found Rapture by mistake doing some diving there, and he was put in prison in one, and you see him in one, and then in two. That's who you see. Like I think he was even one of the first Big Daddies. This guy. And
But yeah, I just remember the other ones had enough stuff on them that I was like, no, they're dead. But Sophia Lamb in the beginning, I was like, okay, you can live. So I don't know if that affected my thing, but I don't think it did. I think I still got a good ending, and like I said, save the one lady. But yeah, but Kris had already nodded to this in the beginning that it's a more forgetful story. I don't know what makes it less impactful. They did a good job of the fact that the story could have played without Bioshock 1. So I think that you could have been a newcomer to Bioshock 2. And now that you're not the main character again, you're a completely new character coming in. You could really have learned the story of 2 without 1. You could have learned why are these, because these are new kids that have been stolen from the surface and brought back down. Right. Like that was the whole premise of these little sisters. These aren't little sisters that were being born in Rapture. These were kids that were being stolen from the surface and brought to Rapture. And so it's like it's a whole new storyline that as much as it does benefit you to play Bioshock 1 first, I think that it could have held its own on that, and maybe they would have found it more impactful, or more memorable because they didn't experience how great the first story was.
And it's the kind of recap I watched about like the overarching story and everything really gets into the details of how it looked from the surface too, because basically in a really quick nutshell, he Andy Rand or
Iron or Iron,
the founder,
the Rand guy.
The founder of Rapture basically.
Now that's isn't that the real life person that the book that it's based off of? It's Andrew Ryan.
Yeah. So he basically secretly built everything because he wanted to get away from the normal world, and so he had to get a lot of resources and a lot of secretive people to go work on all of that. And then he sent invites to all really smart people and successful people, so you would get an invitation to go to this secret place. So like the idea behind everything was really cool, but then those people would disappear because they would accept the invitation. So for the people on the surface, there were these mass disappearances of famous people. Then it all stopped, and couple of years later, it's a mass disappearance of little girls everywhere. Gotcha. Like no more adults, but like that's a cool connecting feature of the two, where like from a perspective from the surface, it's like, oh, it's happening again, but they're not going after the same people at all. Like people were making theories of what was happening to these people.
That's pretty cool.
That's crazy. I never thought of that or noticed that. All right, well that's pretty much Bioshock 2, and we'll just roll right into Bioshock Infinite, which was released some years later. I think I actually didn't look at the numbers on this, but I think it was at least 5 years later, maybe 5 or 6 years later. There's definitely a decent chunk of time between Bioshock 2 and Infinite, but it was released by 2K as the original was, and Ken Levine returned for Bioshock Infinite. I played this one originally in 2015, and full disclosure, I didn't play it again. I refreshed myself on the story because I love the story in this one.
Mhm.
This Bioshock Infinite story is my favorite of all 3 stories. But I'm going to rely on you guys to talk about the gameplay or details involved with the gunplay and vigors and all that jazz. But this one sold big. It sold 11 million copies and got a 93, 94 on Metacritic. Did a decent job, and I think it's kind of like The Witcher 3 in terms of there were 2 decent games that came before, but it's the third one that really I think solidified it for like the populace. I think for the majority of people, Bioshock Infinite established it. And
which series do you disagree on, Dylan? Witcher?
I'm just saying I like 1 in this trilogy as the most. So it's like, I can't say that this is the the best in the series, the accumulation. But hey, if that's with the Metacritic and the stuff.
I'm saying more in the sense of more people have played Infinite than people have played Bioshock 1 is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And so it's getting the whole like, Witcher 3 treatment where people are going back and then they're going back and playing 1 and 2 or talking about it but it's the numbers in terms of what sold is like double for Bioshock Infinite as opposed to Bioshock 1, and definitely even more for Bioshock, even less for Bioshock 2. But in terms of, I think Bioshock 1 and Bioshock Infinite have very different, similar, but very different stories and feels to their stories and what it looks like. So, but yeah, let's jump into Bioshock Infinite. It's actually set before Bioshock 1 and 2 back in 1912. You play as Booker DeWitt, and you go to the city in the sky, Columbia. And you're sent to rescue a woman, Elizabeth, from the clutches of her captor, Zachary Hale Comstock. And you pretty much fight your way through the clouded city using guns, vigors, and your skyhook, which pretty much has the same effect as the drill from 2, as in it makes a big bloody mess when you use it on people's faces. But yeah, so what did you guys think? Just like with 2, what did you guys think of the opening for Bioshock Infinite? And this time we're going to start with Kris. Mix it up a bit.
All right. So it was funny because on stream I was telling people that I am so glad that this is way lighter. It's not dark anymore, and there's no carnival stuff. And I turn a corner and I'm in a carnival.
Yeah.
But it doesn't last long,
It's back.
It's not like those. I don't know what of values, circus of values.
Circus of values.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if they had like recurring vending machines that were kind of like that.
They did. They made big statue ones where they're like big, like military busts and stuff like that.
They had some recurring ones with little music and jingles and
But it was, anyways, it was much lighter. I really like the feel, like the colors and being in the sky, everything's blue instead of dark, and it was really nice. And for sure, I think they perfected the mechanics. The guns felt nice. Also, one little fun thing I did for that playthrough is that I wasn't going for the platinum, but I saw that there were trophy for so many kills with each gun. So I varied the guns a lot. Like when I had the trophy, I would swap it, and I had a lot of fun trying them all out. And so yeah, gameplay wise, really cool. Again, I didn't use the powers very much.
Come on, Kris. Use those powers, man. They have really cool powers in this one, like Shock Jockey, and I'm trying to think like Possession. There's the Possession one that I can't remember the name of, but where you could have people fight for you and
and the robot
there's some cool ones.
like that.
Yeah, for me it was all about the headshots, just using the bullets.
Headshots.
Yeah,
you and those headshots.
So and like story wise, like extremely interesting, like intriguing. Like I'm sure we'll get in the story a bit later, but that intrigued me from the get-go, and I didn't feel like I was left out not knowing enough. you know, there's still some recordings you have to listen to. There were those things that you had to watch, like those old movies that I never, I personally didn't
look into.
Yes, like for me they they weren't super fun to watch. I was always left like, okay, that like, am I gonna see at one point something really cool? But I guess it's like really historical pieces, and yeah, but the story is really really nice, and this time he's got a voice as compared to the other games,
the silent protagonist.
Yeah, and yeah, it's you really want to know what's that mission. It starts really weird. They drop you off a boat, and you need to save the girl, and or bring back the girl to pay your debt. And yeah, from then on, you're trying to see what's going on, and those two characters, the twins,
yep,
are really weird and interesting. You want to know why they appear everywhere, and
how they appear everywhere.
Yeah, and yeah, there's crazy. That's one game. I think that having the time, you can go down a rabbit hole and really analyze every little thing and replay it, and there's amazing replay value because they put so much thought into every little thing, and that story is just crazy, completely crazy, but it makes sense, you know. Ken Levine really put work into this, and he's got a big brain, so it came out like, you know, you could, as much as he probably liked Atlas Shrugged, he made like a masterpiece of a story, I think, in this one.
Yeah. So how about you, Dylan? What did you think of the opening, the progression of the story, the gameplay, all the above? Just cover it all.
So for me, this actually took me probably 3, maybe 4 goes to get through. So I had actually played it when it first came out, but that was also around a time where I was still so wrapped up into things like, you know, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, you know, into my COD days back in college and stuff like that. I was always playing multiplayer games with my friends, and then you see this shooter, which I had already loved, Bioshock. And I was like, oh, Bioshock Infinite, this is going to be awesome. I'm sure I had grabbed a copy back then as well and tried to start it. But then, you know, I got through, say, the first, I don't know, 2 hours of it back in the day. And then the next night, like, oh, my brother's like, hey, do you want to play some, you know, whatever that? They're like, oh, yeah. So then I go play games with him, right? And I forget to load Bioshock Infinite back up, you know, and then it goes a few months by and I'm like, oh man, I really need to give Bioshock Infinite a try. And I go back, I'm like, I should probably start back over. I don't remember any of these mechanics. And so I do the first 2 hours again. And then the next day I don't hop back on, and it got this kind of weird rinse and repeat of me not making it through the beginning. It never sunk its teeth into me in the beginning of the game until this time. Now, I'm such a different gamer. I don't do, you know, these kind of like online multiplayer stuff anymore. I've been so into heavy story-based games, JRPGs and RPGs now, that going into this was like, oh, sweet. I'm getting a first-person shooter with a great story again. You know, now I'm getting the best of both worlds. My shooter days plus my now new story days. And it really did give me this wow factor, this go that I gave it, because it's almost unfair to Bioshock 2 that Bioshock 1 gives you Rapture, and then Bioshock Infinite gives you this Cloud City. This created this underwater civilization like you'd never seen before, gave you atmosphere, sounds, music, you know, the lighting, everything was fantastic in one. And then you get Bioshock Infinite, which does it again on its head. You know, like you're saying, it's bright, it's in the sky, and you're just like, holy crap, how did they capture the magic of Bioshock again? You know, how did the lightning strike twice? You know, it was just like, wow, they really did it. They gave us a new area. And the opening, you know, you get baptized and slide down the, you know, this giant tube, and it's like, but you're in this water area. So it's like this nod to Bioshock of like, there's still water. You're still here. It's still Bioshock. You're walking through this glistening water floor in this, giant cathedral type area. And it does, as much as it's so different from Bioshock 1, it just lets you get this feeling of Bioshock. It was still there. It still felt like we're still the same company. We're still gonna give you Bioshock, but try to embrace this new world. You're being baptized into a new Bioshock, and it was really fun for that. And then you get out there and you do get this carnival and kind of seeing all these things. It's like, man, listening to the dialogue, and it's like I have to say too, those like kaleidoscope looking in, movie things. The first view, I was like, oh, cool. It's like Cuphead, and going through it, I'm like, oh yeah, this feels all right. I was listening to them. But then after that, it almost only became like, it would show you like 1 out of like 50 or 70 or whatever the number of them that exist are. I was kind of just touching them to get that number to go up, but I wasn't actually watching it later on in the game. But yeah, I mean, it almost also gave me, have you guys played Dishonored?
Yeah.
I don't know if you played those games. It gave me that kind of vibe to the setting
that.
and stuff like that too. The opening of Dishonored and how that is felt like the same area where you're going to try to find Elizabeth on the first time. The twins, I loved. The music would change when you encountered them, and it was almost like this Alice in Wonderland feel to it.
Totally.
Of like,
they would talk in
Cheshire
riddles.
Cat, kind of talking in riddles and stuff like that. Gave me, Tim Burton and like all of that kind of vibes. And I love Tim Burton to death. I love all of his movies, and so that whenever they would pop in, I'm like, I love these people. Like these ones, they have so much character, and it's just so eerie, but then confusing and exciting and enthralling. I loved everything about them. But yeah, it's like the first time seeing this kind of Cloud City and the Skyhook and stuff like that, which is super shocking. You said it's like the Drill. This time I went super heavy guns. I played so heavy on melee on Bioshock 2, and then the guns did feel good for Infinite. So I did start to play much heavier on there. And Bioshock 1, I used my plasmids. Bioshock Infinite, I really didn't, because of it was almost like the way that they limited to them. So like it was like there was different, the way that they were, like it wasn't by amount anymore. I think it was like there was like individual slots of how many you could use, determined on which plasmid it was. So like say it was something that wasn't that powerful, you may be able to use it 4 times, but something that was powerful, that same bar would only be 2 uses or something like that. I think that limited me from using the plasmids. I think I used them for puzzles. I think the most I actually used was the possession one, where I was only using that on the vending machines to get money to pop out. So I would use possession all the time and get the money to pop out to then go buy ammo or whatever I needed, because I played so heavy on weapons.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I remember from when I played it, I definitely used both. I honestly, I don't know if it's just because I've been a platinum trophy hunter for so long, and I try to just use all the mechanics. I don't usually ignore any mechanics unless it's like you do this or you do that. Like, do I, in some games you can either dash or you can parry. You can use a shield or you can dodge. And usually I'm a dodging dash kind of person as opposed to the shield or parry. But I felt like in Bioshock Infinite, that just like with Bioshock 2, that the guns and the vigors complemented each other. From what I remember, I really liked it, and I really liked the verticality of the skyhook, like not just using it as a melee weapon, but jumping on those cool tracks and just like spinning around. Now I will say there was a few times that I felt like I spent like way too long spinning around trying to find that last. I was like trying to find that last bad guy, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna stay on this thing until I find him. And but yeah, that was a really cool aspect, I think, of the game, really adding a dynamic to it where you're almost like on a roller coaster fighting enemies. And
one more to go back to the opening hour there. It was funny when you had said it's not as dark as well, Kris, going up into the sky and stuff like that, which I thought was funny because in the story sense, gosh, it felt so much darker than Bioshock. So like Bioshock, yeah, there was some messed up things, you know, with that doctor that's trying to make the perfect person, like this one's too fat, this one's too skinny. You know, there was some really dark stuff in that, and all these, you know, kind of plasmid addicted people. But like this one touched on, you know, racism and things like that, and like wants you to like choose whether or not to throw a stone at this, you know, interracial couple on stage, you know. And I it's like, that was dark. That was a really it's like, sure, man, you know, you gotta think like, go ahead.
They tackle darker subjects, but you're fighting normal people. You're fighting a lot of policemen, and then you're fighting the rebellion, and then but they're all, as it's in Bioshock 1 and 2, you're almost fighting like
insane asylum people.
So it's
like put them out of their misery.
So it's darker in a sense that it would be if I was there in reality, get me out of there ASAP. As the other place, if you're just living a normal life, it's like peaceful, it's colorful, people are normal, they're having tea, you know, it's not everybody's crazy and killing each other. You're a bad guy, so for them, so they all go after you, but they're not completely crazy. They're brainwashed.
I think that rolls us then into, let's just get into the nitty gritty of the story, because I mean, how many games have you played where you find out by the end that you're both the protagonist and the villain? What a I don't know what to call it, like a mic drop moment where you realize that this is like a multiverse of madness kind of story, where you know, you are both Booker DeWitt and Comstock. You know, you guys talk about the twins, the Lutesi twins, like Robert and Rosalind. They are the same person, just in two different universes that have found each other in two different dimensions. They found each other, and they have pretty much like been the behind the scenes, traveling through the different dimensions, working things, and then discovering that one version of your character, Comstock, is going to make the world a terrible place, like going to just bring destruction. And his daughter is also going to bring destruction if led down the wrong path. And that daughter is Booker DeWitt's daughter that he gave away to his other dimension self of Comstock.
Minus a finger.
Minus a finger, because she gets pulled through, a little pinky finger, and it gets lopped off. But what do you guys think of kind of, and I feel like it was really far towards the end of the game where you discover your identity,
it was
like your connection. It was pretty much the end, right?
It's the ending credits.
I think you get a hint of it. There's one time where I think you're fighting Comstock before the baptism scene again, is where you really find out that you are Comstock. But I think you're either fighting Comstock or he's over the radio towards one of these end fights, and he almost addresses that you are him, and you're like, you don't really catch it, you don't really notice it, but there definitely was something there where it was like almost like the same thing of like your father in Bioshock 1 saying like, are you really going to be controlled like this, you know, whatever. And he almost has this one liner that's like, you know, I'm you, you know, like it's like subtle in there. I wish I could remember exactly what it was. Like, unfortunately, I've played so many games in between, but that part made so much more sense, where it was like either he might have even been talking to Elizabeth, saying like, why are you guys both coming after me? Like when he is me, you know, it's like, it was like a line almost like you're calling the kettle black. It's like, I am you, dummy, you know, but like, you guys are both seeking these extremes. I can't remember exact, but there was a hint, and that it only comes out afterwards that you're like, oh,
in which we do need to touch on the other half of this, the other protagonist, which is Elizabeth, the girl that you're supposed to rescue as Booker DeWitt, and you later find out that she was your daughter in the past. And but I want to real quick, just because we already talked about the guns and the vigors, like everything revolving around that gameplay, but Elizabeth's a very important part of the gameplay in this game, like her ability to rip through space and time and create distractions and, you know, offering you med packs and bullets.
She picks up ammo and stuff.
Yeah, that
She's
was
really helpful.
really powerful.
Yeah, and then her overall just contribution to the story, like I think she's probably my favorite character.
She's super
in
fun.
this game. Like she's super sweet, but then also you can see that like almost that Rapunzel wrestling of I want to be free, but I'm also loyal to my captor.
Savior.
Like I love my adopted father, who has taken care of me my whole life, and then her relationship with Booker, where it's very much. I think the first half, I feel like it's a very awkward Empire Strikes Back moment where you like feel like is there something romantic between Elizabeth and Booker, but then in the second half you discover no, Booker's her dad, and we're not going that weird route. But discovering that you're her dad, like I don't know about you guys, but as a well, I can imagine for Kris, I can probably say for Dylan, I don't think you have any kids, right?
Nope, just a dog.
So I mean that's kind of like a hairy kid.
The way that we treat this thing,
but playing this as a dad, when at the very end I discovered that was Booker's daughter, like the story took on a much more personal meaning to me, fighting for my daughter. Like obviously I don't see myself as Booker DeWitt, and a lot of the crazy stuff they go through I don't connect with, but it's the very end when he sacrifices himself and and everything that happens, it's like wow, what an ending to this game. What did you guys think of all the Multiverse of Madness reveals, everything that revolves around that being the dad of, you know, Booker being Elizabeth's dad, Comstock being the version of Booker that if he got baptized he became a right-wing crazy, you know, Bible thumping extremist of Christianity, and if he refused he became an alcoholic Pinkerton, pretty much just mercenary guy that couldn't live with anybody or do anything of any worth. What did you guys think of that? We'll go ahead and start with Dylan.
So I wish I could say that I was in love with it. I felt like the ability to go through all these time loops, let them get a little too crazy. I think they should have reeled it in a little bit. Unfortunately, I felt like it let them break all of the rules. You know, they could do whatever they wanted and say whatever they wanted to say was happening, because we could go at any timeline. This could be a completely different multiverse version, right? Me and my buddy Beaver got in a little argument during the playthrough because in the time where they come through and they say like your debt has been paid, right, and they're taking your daughter, the way that it had been sounding when they came in to get you to do that, it sounded like it's Comstock and then what's your Booker. So Booker, it sounded like Booker was already in a world where Comstock was the overlord. So it sounded like Comstock or Booker owed Comstock the money. So it was like, it never said who he was in debt to. It was just like that he was in debt. So you thought Booker, like in the way that it sounded out and saying that your debt was paid when you handed Comstock the baby, it sounded like you were paying off your debt to Comstock in the first place. So it was like, it sounded like there was two of them in the same world. And that's how I had taken it. The first beginning of it was like, okay, so Booker is giving his daughter to Comstock to pay his debt to Comstock. So I was like, but then you find out he is Comstock. So I'm like, so is he paying his debt to himself? Well, that now makes no sense. You know, this feels stupid because Comstock could have just, you know, said, you know, it just didn't feel like it made sense. Like there would be no debt to yourself here, you know, whatever.
Right.
And this whole situation for then Elizabeth to get her pinky cut off. And, you know, me and Beaver kind of, you know, argues like, how did you think that? I'm like, literally, he went back and watched it. I was like, oh, I can see what you meant by the way that line was said. It did make it seem like Comstock could be the person. But if they would at least said who his debt were to in the very beginning, would have made it.
But
it completely changed that.
He doesn't know. They definitely used a third person. Like they made him like he was a drunk. He had big gambling problems and owed a lot of money. I think he never knew who he owed the money to. He was in such a bad spot in his life that he was ready to give his daughter. And they do. I know it's time travel and it gets crazy.
Yeah.
But he wants he basically wants his daughter, Comstock wants his daughter from another reality, because he played around with, I forget, plasmids from Bioshock Infinite, how they're called, but he played around vigors, and they experimented. So one, he aged really quickly. It's not like 50 years later all his white hair is just because of his experimentation. He aged quicker, and he got infertile, like he couldn't have kids. So he went ahead, because they couldn't open up those tears. He's like, well, I'm just gonna grab my daughter from another reality. So
where I'm not a aged old man, like Benjamin Button or something.
Yeah, so I buy it. I know it's, you know, they can break all the rules, so it may seem cheap, but to me, like on the first level of just my playthrough, it made sense. It was fine, and then you get into explanations and everything, and it gets really crazy how apparently they open, you know, when you see actual Bioshock, you see the rapture, and you come out a window and you see a bunch of yourself. When you go up rapture and you're outside on the water, and like there's little lanterns.
There's all the and all of the different lighthouses were there.
Yeah. So all of those are people that got to that point. And so they're all realities, that they all have their own stories, and they finally got to that point, and they tried a bunch of stuff. And at the very beginning, when you see the Lutesses, and they play heads or tails, and they say, well, it's 123 heads. That's because you're the 123rd to go through that. So they have multiple bookers that tried, and nothing worked. And the only thing that works is to
kill yourself in the
kill
end.
yourself right before the baptism.
Yeah.
So
and that's the big ending. Like, that is the end, where Elizabeth has to drown you. You drown willingly, but her booker does.
And by actually doing that, you're canceling
the selling of your daughter through, or
you're canceling but you
person,
the whole
multiverse,
Columbia, like Columbia never existed because you do that. And that explains also why you never hear of Columbia in Bioshock 1, because it never existed. Gotcha. You like canceled it.
Y'all wipe it. It's a wipe.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a powerful thing. I liked it, but don't get me wrong. It was, like you said, what other thing have you been protagonist and antagonist, you know, at the same time? Like, pretty freaking cool. Again, they
like
lightning struck twice,
Club?
You know? yeah. But lightning struck twice with the setting of Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite, and they did a plot twist where it wasn't like M. Night Shyamalan, where he tries to do plot twist in everything all the time. This was like, no, this is actually a good one, you know?
Yeah,
but
sure.
I did think that there was some parts, I can't remember specifically, which just felt far-fetched, or where I wish that they had done it slightly differently.
Yeah. Did you like I like Bioshock Infinite's version of a Big Daddy with a songbird?
Oh yeah.
It had the same feel of a Big Daddy, but definitely was not a Big Daddy. But the whole, like, learning the song and controlling the songbird, and then having the fight on the airship. I know for you, Kris, you had a hard time with that airship battle, right? With the
hard time is maybe a bit of a stretch, but I played it like I died maybe twice, I think.
Oh, okay. Not a hard time then.
But I wasn't playing on easy, so no much merit, but I did really enjoy that fight. And if I'm not wrong, right, that you can call the songbird to
attack the blimps.
Yes. That was really cool.
Yeah.
It's funny when you said you know, the Bioshock Infinite's version of the Big Daddy. I actually wasn't even thinking of the songbird. I was thinking of the George Washington, like, Sentinel robot.
Yeah.
Well, those are
that felt like the big thing of the area that would come in.
That was Yeah, they both played their part as because the songbird was the protector of Elizabeth, so that's where that's the Big Daddy part I was thinking of. But yeah, then you have the president robots that they are you're like the
big
ones you
enemy of that
actually
era.
fight. Yeah. That would lumber around and fight.
Yeah, and that's true. I never saw it that way, but you needed when I think it's in the DLC that you learn that they went through a lot of testing to have the songbird imprint on her. So it's true that it's similar to a Big Daddy in that sense. But yeah, I like those George Washington, and then you grab their gun after.
Yeah.
The big machine gun.
You want that? Yeah,
I think get back to gameplay wise, I often used Elizabeth's Rift to do whatever flying one it was, and then I would possess that said flying robot to be my pal for all of these courtyard fights and things like that. I always, if there was a gray option, these like kind of TV static, and I saw one was in the air, I almost always just did that one and immediately possessed it, and it was like kind of my go-to. Unless there was a George Washington robot in, say, like a housing style battle, I would often grab him and possess him. That was a really fun way to play it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, do you guys have any other final Bioshock Infinite thoughts?
I was gonna say, are we gonna talk about DLC or
we can? Yeah, I can't
didn't
say
get to go through
I remember. I know I did it. I did it back in 2015, but I don't remember. But yeah, what did you guys think of Burial at Sea? Go.
I didn't go through Burial at Sea Part 2 because I was not having a good time with the remaster version of Infinite or whatever, in that collection. It was chugging and dropping frames. Like Kris was actually there when I was in Burial at Sea Part 1, and it was just like I'd have to be on stream and be like, that's not frame drops from the stream or anything like that. That's the game chugging. I don't know what's going on. Beaver, again, his stepdad loves to play Bioshock Infinite, and his stepdad chooses to play the Xbox 360 version on the Xbox One because it runs better than the collection version. So I own it as well. I own all three of them without them being on the remaster collection, and so maybe I'll go back and try it that way. But I was just getting such a chug all the time that it really hindered me from wanting to do Burial at Sea Part 2. But Burial at Sea was so cool. Going into Rapture again, in this new age where, I think the plasmids, transitioned from the Infinite into, Rapture here, and like seeing it lively. So you got to see Rapture before the chaos, before the fall, and it was so cool. Like that was a sick thing to get into, to be able to see, because that's what you crave, right? You want to see Rapture at its heyday, and so you get there and you see these shops, and the plasmids are on sale at the display here, and there's a few junkies around getting these plasmids, but the world has not gone crazy yet. And you're getting
the waiter zooming around.
And it's like you're getting to see the kind of area that Kris alluded to earlier, where he talked about these rich people getting these invitations and coming down and being this secret society elite, down underwater. You go into this area where there's this artist who's like, I think he's killing people while they're like trying to get them posing. They're like dancing, and then he like kind of kills them while they're on this dance floor to get them into a weird pose.
I remembered that. I couldn't remember where that was. That's in
it was in Burial at Sea, and like he makes you dance with Elizabeth, but then you don't die, clearly. But it was very weird. But then that has the darkest ending to anything. So again, we're in a spoiler thing here. It's so hard for me to say spoilers usually. It's like I'm like, okay, remember you're talking spoilers. But so you are heating up the tubes of Bioshock. So the places that you put the little sisters into when they're done, harvesting, you are now trying to get this little sister to come out. So you're like boiling these tubes and making them super hot, and you can hear her like, right? And she doesn't want to come out of the tube, and you're just, we're going to smoke her out. And so you're heating up these tubes, and then you go to get her out of the tube. And I don't remember why they're trying to stop you, but somebody's trying to stop you as well from getting the little sister out of there, and you're pulling her out of the tube. And then the simultaneous storyline of Bioshock Infinite, of that same scene where Elizabeth loses the finger, now is playing out, and you don't realize that it's playing out, and all of a sudden you pull this little sister and the scene cuts and the baby doll's head rolls across the ground. But this is the alternate world, that in the other verse, that is not a baby doll that just lost their head in the cut, just like Elizabeth lost the pinky. This is a version of Elizabeth who has now been beheaded. And it's like, holy cow, like it was the darkest thing ever. And you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just watch? Maybe that's why I was hesitant to go into Burial at Sea 2. Maybe I was just so burnt that I was like, I can't do another one of these. But it was rough. But it was cool to see Rapture very lively for a minute until that really dark turn.
Chris, what did you think of
real quickly, like I think I thought that was the end of episode 2. So you see, episode 2 to me, I guess, was a bit more forgetful. I have to re-see it quickly to remember what it's about.
I can't remember. Maybe I played both. And
I thought that's how it all ended, but I would have to go back and see. So overall, like super fun stuff. You go back to Lively Rapture. I loved it. But also in terms of twists, Minerva's Den, did you play that one? Like that's got a crazy twist too, which is kind of similar to Infinite when you think about it, but I was bored. I'm like, I hope this is over soon. And then you see the twist and like, oh wow, that was worth it. Like
Did you play Minerva's Den, Dylan?
Is that the escape room feeling DLC of it?
Because it's a Bioshock 2.
Okay.
It's like a story DLC where
you play as Project Sigma.
No, I didn't do it then. No. So I didn't do any DLCs for 1 and 2 if there were DLCs for 1 and 2. And then Infinite
didn't have.
Showed there was 3 of them. There was Burial at Seas, and then there was an extra one. And the extra one felt like it was just this.
It wasn't a story DLC.
No,
it felt like this escape
fighting
room, like style game where like you had to figure out the puzzle of like how to get out of this room or how to get to said room. And I played 2 minutes of it and was like, it's choppy. I can't get through it. I'm done.
Yeah. Minerva's Den was pretty much you were playing as a Big Daddy again, but you were listening to a man by the name of Porter, who I thought sounded a lot like Obama. He was guiding you through the entire game, or the story, I guess. And then you get at the end and you discover that he was an IT guy that created a supercomputer to hold his psyche, and was trying to preserve his wife's memory, preserve his wife's
conscience, I guess.
To preserve her conscience. And you discover that you, as Sigma, you were actually Porter, who had been changed into a Big Daddy.
Oh, wow.
So there was like this, cool thing.
That sounds pretty cool.
There, it was pretty cool. So the DLCs were definitely just good stories that built upon an already crazy good,
but very
deep.
dark.
Very dark for sure.
I'm not usually a DLC guy either. I usually skip it. There's the Spider-Man ones that were really good. Other than that, I never played DLC.
Did you say Spider-Man? It's not his last name. It's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
It's not Pete Spider-Man.
There's a whole bunch of Spider-Man. There's like Spider-Man 2020, and then there's
it's the Spider-Man
that picture where they're all pointing at each other. That's the Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm not a DLC person. I've been so burnt by DLC lately that I'm like, when people say DLC, or even now the new term instead of DLC, director's cut, I'm just so hesitant because there has been so few DLC that have been good besides, say, Infinites, and Infinites. it had to be included in the remaster collection for me to do it, because otherwise there wasn't a chance that I was risking it.
Right. Yep. All right, guys, to wrap things up, I want you to rank Bioshock 1, 2, and Infinite.
As a series?
Yep, from your least favorite to your favorite.
Okay, rank them in order.
Worst.
Yeah, rank them in order.
Okay.
Or yeah, just whichever one you like the least to the one you like the best. So I threw it on you, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to go in order of release. Bioshock 1 is my least favorite, then Bioshock 2, then Bioshock Infinite.
I go 2, 1, 3. So 2 is my least favorite. And then my favorite is definitely Infinite. So we're gonna have 3 different orders. That's
we are.
Yeah.
Yep, mine is 2, 3, 1. That's funny because you guys knew that it was going to be 1. You know, it had to be 1.
Yeah, we knew what would be 1.
It had to be 1, but 2, 3, 1. Poor 2. But see, this is the thing, you know. So everybody watching, you know, sometimes there's just a thing that says even the worst Bioshock game is still an amazing game, you know. It's like there's so many series like that even if it's say the worst in the series, it's still an amazing game that could top tier any other games, you know. It's like,
for sure.
Goodness, just hearing that, you know, 2 is the worst, it's just like, you know, the least favorite in a great series. It's like, if you didn't have 1 or Infinite, 2 would still be an amazing game on its own.
Yep, definitely.
And you know, now that it's available as a trilogy, and all of that comes into one package. If you have PlayStation Plus, you know, it was all in there. So you know, together with the DLCs, it took me 45 hours for the 3 games plus DLC. I mean, you know, around 12 hours per main game, and then about 3 hours per DLC on average. So it's, you know, for because they're all so amazing, like you said, even the worst is super fun. So definitely recommend the trilogy if you have that kind of time to put into a series. It's not that long, right? We play games that are much longer than that whole trilogy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, compared to Final Fantasy VII Remake, those are rookie numbers. 45 hours. I mean, that's nothing.
I literally today hit 45 hours on my save for Persona 5, and I'm like a quarter of the game in. That's what it feels like. You know,
that's another one.
That's a 100 to 150 hour game, and I'm like, wow. I feel like there's still game mechanics that they haven't sprinkled in yet, and I'm 45 hours in.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Craziness. All right, guys. Well, I think that's all for our bodaciously bona fide spoiler cast for the Bioshock series. As is tradition, some quick housekeeping where we offer towels, fluff pillows, topped with Andy's candies, and tip you off to the GMG news you need to know. Dylan, Quest4Nostalgia, plug your show. How can people connect with you on YouTube, Twitch, etc.?
Yeah. So like we said, I'm a YouTube content creator and a Twitch streamer as well. It is Quest4Nostalgia with the number 4 in there. And yeah, I do about a video every single week on YouTube and just fun content there. And if you want to catch out and see what I'm playing on Twitch, it's the same handle there.
Sweet. Definitely worth checking out. Got some
good videos, for sure. I love his stuff.
Streaming. And speaking of streaming, the GMG GMG stream team is on and popping. Kris the Rock is streaming at the butt crack of dawn, 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every single day. And then I stream a little bit after that later on in the day on most days of the week. Marc catches us on Saturday nights. He's our nighttime representative on Saturdays and sometimes other random days. But yeah, we're playing everything from Days Gone to Apex and Splitgate. I've been playing a lot of Hades lately. So there's quite a variety to check out. If you prefer tweeting on Twitter, discoursing on Discord, you can join us on there also. There'll be links in the show notes. And then finally, if you get a chance, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Podchaser, because it helps us reach new joiners. And we just want to give people, of course, an option to let their voice be heard. So feel free to do that as well. Alrighty then, Kris the Rock, Dylan the Oak, along with you, our beloved friends, family, and joiners. Go get your good morning this week, and may God bless and guide your lives as you live, as you work, and as you game.
4.